Hi guys, welcome to today's video. Today we have a review of the new Netflix original Mank, which is directed by David Fincher. So diving straight into the pros, the positives about this movie, it's technically flawless with all the big and small details. It really makes you feel like you're in the 1930s. Like there's every single thing which indicates that this is a film from that time, whether that's when they're in the car and they have the moving green screen behind them. The main one obviously black and white, and then there's also just the title cards or the text that appears up on screen. Also, one that I noticed was in the top right corner they always had this, I don't know how to describe it, like a black dot which appears when there's like a change in a scene, because that's where they changed it on the film, I believe. It was just a very well made movie, technically brilliant. As I mentioned, it really does feel like a movie from that time. I'd say if you took out the actors, or you took out my knowledge of these actors and just of the movie itself, you just showed it to me randomly and I didn't know anything about it, I would have probably thought it was made in the 1930s or around that time. Nothing really indicates, as I mentioned, besides that the people who star in it, nothing indicates that this was made in 2020. It was that well made to look like it was from that time. Yeah, I really thought everyone in this cast did a great job of portraying their characters. And top off, I thought the dialogue was pretty good to tie in with that. So you can tell David Fincher really put a lot of thought and effort into making this as perfect as he could in this department. However, trying to perfect it to make it seem like a film from that time has its problems as well. It relies heavily on flashbacks, which is what was done quite a bit back then. It still is done nowadays, but just the order of flashbacks made things quite confusing. You know, I'd always know there was a flashback because they'd put the text up on the screen to say flashback, but just kept jumping back and forth, which made it quite confusing to follow with the story, made me lose track of where I was. And I had only seen Citizen Kane for the first time a couple of days before seeing this movie, and after watching that I've noticed this film, obviously it's tied in heavily with Citizen Kane because it's about the screenwriters, etc., but it does rely on you heavily to have some of the knowledge of that. There's some things that even I didn't understand because I wasn't a huge fan of Citizen Kane. I haven't seen it that many times, and not only does it rely on you having seen Citizen Kane having a vast knowledge about it, but it also relies on you to know what life was like around that time and to know what every little thing was like. For example, I said that trying to perfect a movie to make it look like it was from this time has its cons, and that is one of them, because they don't want to force things to make it seem like, oh, you're just doing that to tell the audience. They wanted to make it as realistic as possible. It is really targeted towards a certain audience, and unfortunately for me, it wasn't one which I resonated with too much. So there is my review of Mank from Netflix. As I mentioned, this was a very well made movie. It really did feel like it was from that time. However, it really relied on you to have vast knowledge of Citizen Kane and of that time, so unfortunately I couldn't enjoy it as much as I wish I could. I don't actually think I was the target audience, but I gave it a watch anyway. So in terms of my rating, I'm going to give Mank a 69%. Judging off how many movies we've had this year, and because a lot of them have been delayed till next year, that's actually quite high up on my 2020 list, which you should be able to see in the next month as we're closing in on the end of the year. But speaking of lists, rankings, after this movie's release now, I will have a David Fincher ranking sometime in the next week, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this movie and this video. Please let me know what you thought of it down below, and I hope to see you in my next video.